Hello and welcome back to Behind the Toys with me, Jacob Toys. Please do like, share, subscribe and all of those things. All support to the channel is very much appreciated. And in this episode, I get the amazing opportunity to sit down with a very talented David Nakayama. So without further ado, let's jump in and check out that interview right now. Hello and welcome back to Behind the Toys with me, Jacob's Toys, and my special guest today, David Nakayama. How are you doing, David?
Hey, I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me on the show.
Brilliant stuff. No, thank you very much for coming on. So we've got lots to talk about. I don't want to spoil too much at the beginning, so we'll just jump in. We'll go through some of the questions. But, you know, your artwork's kind of all over the place through comic books and video games and obviously more recently the Marvel Legends box art, which is what a lot of the people in the kind of collecting community might have come to know your stuff. But yeah, so let's just jump in. So obviously in your career, you've worked on tons of comic books and covers and variants and stuff like that. Are you a big comic book reader yourself? Do you read a lot of comic books?
I do. If I turn my camera slightly this way, you would see stacks of comics right up to my head level.
Amazing.
I don't dare, but that's true. It's right here. I still, I got into this sort of simultaneously as both an artist and a reader. I started collecting comics the exact same moment that I wanted to draw them. And it was all because of Jim Lee. It's all his fault. Yeah. Back in the 90s, I saw those Uncanny X-Men books. I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I love it. And the more I read it, the more I was like, yep, this is for me. And it was literally life-changing, so I haven't really looked back. I've been trying to, climbed that mountain creatively ever since, but also kept up the hobby as a reader ever since.
Because it's, I remember I've been reading and collecting comic books myself since I was small, really. But really properly collecting for about 20 years. And there's just so much now. There's so much availability, and variants, different storylines and stuff. So it is difficult. I must admit, I was very pleased when they released the Marvel Unlimited, and I was able to kind of just catch up on certain things. But it doesn't beat a hand, like something in your hand. So if you had to go back then and read a comic book for the first time, is there a particular one that you'd like to kind of revisit as a first time reader again?
As if I had never read it before?
Yeah, as if
I gotta call out those Uncanny issues. They were just so important and formative to me. Yep. I just had a different idea about what comic books were before I saw those.
Right.
I guess I had Jack Kirby or something in my head. Like that's what a comic book looked like. Mm-hmm. And although I love Jack Kirby now, and I've learned, it's like a taste you acquire over time, like a more mature taste. I didn't love it as a 10-year-old. And so what it took was that modern sensibility of drawing that Jim Lee and the 90s artists had to really hook me in.
Mm. Yeah, and Jim Lee's style became so iconic, especially for the X-Men as well, with the animated series and stuff like that, being heavily based on the Jim Lee. And when you think of, or when a lot of people think of X-Men, they think of that kind of Jim Lee style. So he did do amazing things for the X-Men.
Literally to this day, this is still Jim Lee's, design work on Rogue. This is the essential Rogue. And this is a brand new product that I just drew recently.
Yes. Yeah. I've got, you probably can't see mine. She's up there. She's out of the box. I must admit, because I'm very much an out of box collector. So I do like getting my figures out, only because I do customs, do photographs and that kind of stuff. But the boxes for me, there was always an element that I couldn't throw them away completely. I had to store them. So my attic is full of boxes. Boxes. And my wife's always saying, like, you're going to recycle these one day. And yeah, maybe not. But I think that, and being a collector for so long, it's lovely to see the progression of the box art as well. And we'll get on to your involvement in that a little bit later. Have you met Jim Lee? Just out of curiosity, as you've mentioned him.
Kind of, in the early 90s, even in Hawaii, it was routine for professionals to be flown out here, and do signings. And way back when he was just beginning Wildstorm as a studio, him and his entire, studio, including Mark Silvestri, including J. Scott Campbell, who was an unknown at the time, if you can believe it. Wow. He's now my favorite artist ever. Those guys came through and they were doing their studio tour, and I briefly met him there, but not since, unfortunately. I think part of it is a little bit hero worship. You know, I'm like afraid to go up to him.
Yes, I think you've got the credentials now, though, to like to stack up. It's, you know, that it's there. I think you'd be okay. I do think you'd be okay. So let's talk about the Marvel Legends box art, because obviously, you know, it's behind the toys, and you know, a lot of the guests I have on this show are to do with the figures as opposed to the comics, but they all mix in together. So obviously you've done loads of them there. Do you know how many you've done as a rough idea?
I was doing an estimate the other day, and I think we've recently crossed 50, if you can believe it.
Wow.
I was a little bit shocked, but you know, it started off with the Deadpool motor scooter, if you can remember that one. They did a line of, you got it right there. Look at you.
This one?
Yes. Yeah. That one. Yeah.
There you go.
Yep. That was my first box art. And then we did a few more like vehicle motorcycle ones. And then we got into like kind of X-Men more and more.
Yeah.
We did a wave of Deadpool, a wave of X-Men. We did some retro ones, 4 here and there, 6 here and there. And it kind of adds up pretty quickly. Yeah. And here, oh, and you know, the Age of Apocalypse ones behind me over here. That's 2 waves so far.
Yeah. That was brilliant. I mean, I remember seeing the Deadpool pirate wave, wasn't it, with the crazy characters, and there was Black Tom Cassidy in there, pirate Deadpool, real crazy wave. And funny enough, the wave was kind of, people kind of went one way or another. They were either really into it, or they were kind of like, why are we getting a pirate Deadpool? But I can imagine that was a lot of fun to draw, though, you know, to take Deadpool and pirates and, you know, draw those. I remember first seeing your artwork myself on the Riders boxes, and that was kind of where it is. Let's really test my knowledge now. So Deadpool was one of them, Xavier, Squirrel Girl, Punisher,
one more.
I've got them all up here. I'm gonna look. Captain America, the World War.
Very good.
Yes, there we go. So, and that was completely unscripted. Just for anyone who is watching, that was completely unscripted. But I remember seeing it because
you have proven your knowledge right there.
it's the OCD element of me, I think. But yeah, I remember seeing your artwork, and obviously on those boxes, they're bigger boxes, so there's a much more kind of a bigger scope to kind of show the artwork off, and I think it really worked well. But having been a collector for quite some time now, seeing the progression of the boxes, because even as sort of soon as what was it, 2015, I think it was, that the artwork was very much just photographs of the figures, and they weren't anything particularly special, and they were just a photograph of the figure. And you know what, you can see that on the front of the box, you know, you can turn it around, you can see the figure, you don't need a photograph on the back. So seeing actual comic book artwork on the boxes has really changed, I think, for a lot of collectors, the total package. And it's great to see that, you know, that thing. And I'm so glad that they're using, you know, folks like yourself to do that. I think the Age of Apocalypse ones were fantastic. And most recently as well, they did a reveal, didn't they, with the Blue Marvel figure? Yes, and that was, you know, that was a real turning point, because they revealed that the figure was in the wave by showing your box art, which is incredible.
Well, what I like about it is, like, even before I was working on the product, I noticed that they were getting comic artists that I liked to do box art. And so I was like, oh, well, this is pretty cool, right? Like, this makes it legit. This ties it in. This feels like a more authentic product to me. When they had me come aboard, and I couldn't say yes fast enough, it's my favorite gig ever. But I like the fact that you've got people who actually work on the real covers, not just me, but everybody. People who are actually actively working for Marvel. You know, you can go to the comic store right now and pick up work by us, and then it's also so it just feels like it's very, you know, connected to the comics in a way that I think fans appreciate. And I also have to compliment Hasbro on, you know, spending the money, right? Like they've invested in making the quality of the product higher by having us come out and do this stuff. They don't have to, you know, like they don't have to spend that kind of money to sell those toys. but they do. And occasionally they'll go the extra mile, like on the Deadpool. I think I got it right here. This blows me away. Like, there's the front of package art, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they hired me again to do the back of package art.
That's really cool.
Isn't that fun? Like, they didn't have to do that, but it's an illustration of the extra mile that they'll go to. And then the fact that they, they've already invested in it. They already have this artwork. Why not share it? Like, it's free social media content.
Yeah, it's incredible. As I said, I think you hit the nail on the head there when you said it really kind of, takes the level of the product up. Like, it makes it a much more kind of sought after product. And we have so many more kind of inbox collectors, because you have the two types, don't you? You have the ones that rip it open and sort of don't care about the packaging, and you get the ones that they need it completely mint. And I would love to be an inbox collector, but I wouldn't be able to fit them all in. I just wouldn't be able to kind of get them all in. So they're all up in my attic. But I think because of that element, and because of that element of collecting, that's probably why companies like Hasbro have gone down that route of investing more. And I think it's brilliant. But the reveal of Blue Marvel and using your artwork as the way of revealing that figure was fantastic. And I think that it was such a refreshing change as a collector, as a fan, because what they have been doing is they've been showing us renders and digital renders, and this is what it's going to look like, or this is what it's going to, this is how it's going to be. But this was an authentic part of the product. This is the box. This is what the box is going to look like. So it felt like it was a step closer, if that makes sense. Like, it was a real thing. And more recently as well, in Hasbro PulseCon, you did the Vulcan sketch that, and I did enter the competition. I don't know who won the sketch, but it definitely wasn't me. Otherwise, it would have been hung up there. But that was really cool to see you kind of doing it as as it went, and we were kind of guessing what it was at the time. Was that fun to do? Was that something that you kind of had a part in, or did they kind of put the idea to you?
They definitely put the idea to me, but I like how fresh that is, right? Like, I found that if you just keep marketing the same thing the same way every time, it's boring eventually. Yeah. Like, no matter how cool it was the first time, if it becomes predictable to the fans, that's just less intriguing than if you're to hit them from a totally different angle. So I love that they surprised everybody with, hey, win this original drawing, or, they started showing the artwork first, that was different. They have a number of different ways that they can kind of reveal each part of the product. And then by the time the whole package comes together, you're like, wow, yeah, this is great. This has so many cool aspects to it.
Yeah, definitely. Who was your favorite? Which was your favorite? If you had to pick one out of all of the box art that you've done, have you got a particular one that stands out?
Well, that Deadpool one I just held up a minute ago has a special place in my heart, just because it has that super unique back and front artwork.
Yeah.
Like, we've never done that before or since. Another one is the Alpha Flight giant box. That's the biggest one I've ever done. It has the entire team. The box itself is enormous.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen that one, but it's like a good 2 feet tall, 2.5 feet tall, something like that.
It's in my collection. I've got them down there, but the box is up in the attic. So, but yeah, that's a really stunning one. Really nice one. Okay. I must admit, seeing your Instagram, because you've got obviously quite a large following on Instagram with your artwork and stuff. And as you said, it's all there, isn't it? It's all, people can go on and see these high res quality images of this artwork. Whenever I see that the new picture's kind of gone up, I wonder whether we're getting a figure of it. So you did a brilliant, I think it was Elsa Moonstone that you did quite a while back. And I saw that picture go up and I was like, well, are we getting a new one? And then I realized it was something to do with comics. I was like, David, come on, you're teasing us now. I think some of my favorite as well is that really stands out in my mind. And I think it was a variant cover, but it was the Gwenom and the MJ Carnage kind of variants. They were really cool. There was something really cool about the flat red coloring with the MJ. Absolutely stunning.
Thank you. Less is more sometimes.
Of course. But yeah, so you've done loads. I mean, even the Hellfire, the builder figure, you did the sketches there. So I think you've probably done more box art than a lot of people realize that you've actually done. So it is cool. It is very cool. Have you got all of the figures that go with your boxes? Like, have you got all the boxes with your artwork on, or? Are there still a few that you need to?
I'd say the majority. There are some here and there that I don't have. I haven't gotten around to making a beautiful display like you have. I have plans. I have some shelving ideas.
Yeah.
But I also realize that my little office isn't going to have the space for everything I ever do. So I guess I'm trying to pick and choose a little bit.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. I just see, I think for me, if I was designing boxes, the kind of, again, the OCD element, I'd be like, I need to have them. I need to just have these things around me. So it's good that you've got that restraint. So let's talk about X-Men, the animated series, because I can tie it all in. You were on the Hasbro PulseCon, and so was Eric and Julia Leewald from X-Men, the animated series. And ironically enough, the last interview I did was with the pair of them. And the absolutely fantastic guests, brilliant people to speak to, and so passionate. And obviously they're coming back in, they've been back involved with X-Men 97, and all of us kind of 80s and 90s kids are kind of going, yes, we're getting X-Men back. But when you Google search, when you look up X-Men, there's one image that comes up time and time again, as we've discussed, and it's that kind of, portrait kind of yellow with Wolverine front and center. And it turns out that's yours as well, which is amazing.
Weird, right?
Yeah.
It's a really unique piece in my career, because I did that like almost at the beginning, and just through sheer love and like trying not to F it up, I was, I got it to a decent level of quality that was probably a couple years beyond what I actually could do at the time. If you look back at other things I was doing at that time, it wasn't at that level. It was just purely because I felt the pressure, again, not pressure, but just like the fandom in myself, like that. I would look at their art as it was in progress and go, this isn't good enough. This isn't good enough. Keep redoing until it was what it became. So it took me actually many more years to catch up to that level of quality, and then eventually, I think exceeded a little bit. So the crazy thing about that is, how did they find me? Like, I wasn't a known quantity at the time. I wasn't popular. No one knew who I was. In my heart, I was the biggest X-Men fan in the world, and that felt right to me. But how do they know, right? It's the crazy thing about that assignment. It was just that I didn't deserve it at the time. I hadn't earned it yet, but a guy named Tim Ramos is the the editor from Buena Vista at the time who hired me, and thank goodness he did. That product became very, very iconic and important to my career. It led to lots of other X-Men things. Perhaps the reason I'm even talking to you now may have started with that piece. My association with X-Men professionally began there.
Wow. And they released the book as well, didn't they? They've recently released the I forget the exact title, but it's the story of the animated, the great big hard cover. It's a beautiful book, and one of your is it one of your covers is in there, or one of your pieces is in there as well, which is nice.
There's a little section where they talk about the legacy of the show, how it's continued to inspire other products, going forward. And, is it 10 years at this point? Almost 10 years. We did a comic series called X-Men 92 that, purported to continue the adventures just like the cartoon had. And it, brought in some new characters. Conceptually, it's very similar to what X-Men 97, says it's going to be. But I did covers for all of X-Men 92, something like 14 covers, which is kind of a lot these days.
Yeah, I remember there's one that stands out in my mind as well, and I forget who the characters are, but it's almost like a face-off kind of element, isn't it? Where there's a handful of the characters on one side, and it's a really cool thing. I must admit, as a customizer as well, because obviously with the action figures, I do customization and stuff. It's really refreshing to see artwork like yourself, like your own, that we can use as reference points when it comes to characters and doing the customizations. And I'm sure that I speak for a lot of customizers out there, having those kind of reference points of, okay, well, this is a really cool piece of artwork that David's done, and I can see that the pants look like this from this angle. So it's really cool to have it out there.
I love to see those. I'll share real quickly that the other day someone had taken. I have a Wolverine cover that came out recently. He's got a samurai sword over his shoulder. Someone recreated it like a couple weeks after release. in toy form, and I love that. I love seeing those.
Yeah, I mean the cover, the kind of articulated comic book art kind of element of the photography, where they recreate covers and recreate kind of scenes from comic books, is fantastic. I dabble a little bit. I'm not anywhere near as good as some of the people out there, but it's a lot of fun to kind of take a source material, as in a piece of artwork by someone like yourself, and actually kind of try to recreate that with a toy, because you are limited. You know, you can't have the same kind of articulation that you could in a drawing, because you know there are so many pins and angles that you can make that toy move in. So so speaking of toys, which boxes are you working on at the moment? No, I'm only joking. I wouldn't put you on the spot.
Let me spoil all these things.
No, I wouldn't do that. That's not this time. We're not that kind of show. But obviously I joke. So are you excited about the X-Men 97? Are you hyped about that? Were you a fan of the cartoon when it was out, the animated series?
Very much. No, it was I remember loving how they were adapting like storylines I was familiar with, modern storylines. They had Cable in there, Deadpool was in there briefly. That was fun when the characters who were brand new that I was reading in the comics showed up, and when there were familiar storylines being not recreated verbatim, but definitely inspiring episodes of the show. That was the sweet spot for me. I love that, and I would love to see them do that again in 97, but with even more modern stories. So many things have happened in the comics since the show. It'd be really nice to see that continue. And interestingly, Marvel is publishing a series, I think it's called X-Men 92, again, another round of X-Men 92 comics. I did a variant for issue 1, but I'm otherwise not involved. And the conceit, as I understand it, is that they are going to tell the Krakoa era of comics as if it was the animated show. So that makes me interested to see what the actual 97 show does. Are they going to also do that, or are they doing it completely veer off in a different direction? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. And I said this to Eric and Julia when I spoke to them, because over here in the UK they were quite hard to come by. Like you couldn't get them on DVD or VHS. They were very kind of few and far between. We had them on television at the same kind of time as you guys did. But then if you were to go back as an adult and try to source those, they were quite difficult. So when Disney Plus kind of took over and then they were all on there, I've sat down with my boys and we've watched them. So when 97 was announced, it's great because we're both looking forward to this new series, but from kind of different angles, which is a lot of fun. So definitely. So you've done video games as well. You did a lot of video game box art and obviously City of Heroes, the comic book that tied in with the computer game City of Heroes. And that's crazy because that was a game that I remember. I think it was very much ahead of its time. I think if it kind of came out now, it would fall on a completely different platform because I think it was very much ahead of its time. And as a superhero fan, as a comic book fan, I was very much like, this is great. This is amazing. And I never managed to get hold of the comics because of this being over here and things being over there. But you did was it about 12 issues, was it, I think? Or
it's a weird one because it was early in my career when I was primarily doing interior artwork. I was actually drawing the full inside of the comic and not doing the covers, sort of the reverse of what I do now. But I think part of me always really wanted to do the covers. And halfway through that City of Heroes run, I did request and get covers starting with like issue 15. I think issue 15, I just did the cover. Issue 16, I did both the cover and the interior. And then after that, it was all just covers. So there's only one issue of that whole series where the whole thing was by me.
Wow. And the process must take you quite a while to do a cover and an entire inside of a comic book. I mean, how long does that take you to?
Drawing the interior of a comic book is so hard because if you think about it, a comic story these days is 20 pages. Back then it was 22 pages. That really means you need to do about a page a day in a 30-day month, to even meet the deadline. But there's quality, right? Like what if you could spend 5 days per page and make the quality higher, but you wouldn't meet the deadline. So what level of quality can you get per page if the deadline is only 1 day to do it? And it's godly, like these people out there, like a Pepe Larraz or a Jorge Jimenez, who can do month to month the level of quality that they do. I would say is cover quality artwork. There just aren't a lot of people who can do that.
No.
I definitely couldn't, but if I were to go back and do my own series, maybe I'll do that someday. I don't know. I would have to create a style that is possible to execute at a high level of quality within that 1 day time frame.
So tell me about the computer games as well, the box art that you've done for computer games. What was your favorite kind of bits that stood out there in your career?
So the way that came about is I was doing comics and I did the City of Heroes tie-in comic. And then somewhere along the way, they offered me an opportunity to come aboard as a concept artist on the actual game. So that started a 12-year diversion from comics. I kind of got out of comics, got into video games, although very quickly, about 5 years in, I was like, wow, I really miss comics. And I started doing the covers, like moonlighting, doing covers. Yeah, I couldn't let it go. But during that 12 years, I spent 4 years on City of Heroes, from City of Villains right up to the end. Then I moved to like a little wargaming company called Kixeye. And then right after that, this company that became known as Jam City and would be memorable to some people for publishing Avengers Academy, which was a mobile game, and Harry Potter Hogwarts Mystery, which remains a hit mobile game to this day, to my surprise. But I was the original art lead on that. Like the style that you see in the game, the vast majority of the environments in that game, that was all under my tenure as the art lead on that game. So I like to take a little bit of credit for that, but it's not just me. Obviously, there's a full team, who is there. But I like to think that some of the vision was from me.
Yeah, definitely. And as I said, City of Heroes and City of Villains as well, the follow-up they were fantastic games. And I'd love to see them kind of come back now with the platforms that we have and the gaming sort of systems that we have now. I think it would be insane.
So
I think it really would.
Graphics, because the graphics do not really hold up. They're early 2000s graphics, and we did do graphical update even along the way, and it helped, but you can't fully redo it. You can only imagine how cool a superhero MMO with modern combat gameplay and modern graphics could look. I mean, it would be astounding. And like MMO used to be like on its own a cool idea, a genre, but now so many games online, you don't really hear people say MMO anymore, because lots of games are online with lots of players. It isn't really a meaningful term anymore the way it used to be.
No. And I think that's one of the things that really stood out to me when it first kind of came out, was that I could go online and have my character and play with these other characters and kind of interact with these people. And as you say, it was quite early in that kind of genre of gaming, wasn't it? So
literally the beginning. I understand World of Warcraft and City of Heroes launched on the same day. Really? Pretty much. And, wow. And there was even it was such an unknown, and no one knew how the games were going to do. And both, I understand both studios were, kind of friendly because they were, young, scrappy upstarts or whatever. And, very quickly World of Warcraft blew up, and it, created quite a distance between itself and everybody else. But for a while there, those two games were, on a similar track.
Yeah. And obviously tying it into Marvel as well. Am I right in believing you did the motion comic as well for the Avengers War of Wakanda, didn't you? So how was that doing?
Oh, fantastic.
Was that a different...
well, let me say this. I was explaining before how when I was in video games, I missed comics and started moonlighting on comics. Now I'm a freelancer, and I primarily do comics, but I love it when video game companies come to me for this or that, so sometimes I'll get to do a key art or marketing art, or in the case of the project you're talking about, we did a full motion comic. Spent weeks working on what is essentially 8 covers, like the equivalent of 8 covers of material. I definitely encourage everyone to check that out. It's the War of Wakanda expansion for Marvel's Avengers, the console game. And not only me, but several other artists did these full motion comics. Mine happened to be about like the history of the Panther and his fight over a couple of generations with Claw. But I didn't skimp. I did, full cover quality artwork that they then animated. It's a full comic with full voice acting, pretty unique in my what is the word I'm looking for? My catalog of things.
Yeah, no, it's really cool. I have seen it. I've seen a few of those because I quite enjoyed the Avengers game. I'm not gonna lie. Give me anything with Marvel characters that I can read or hold or run around. Like I'm sold. So I've got to ask you as well. My podcast companion Super Sorrel said that I had to ask you this one. So this question comes from him. But you worked on Zenacope drawing the Grimm fairy tales as well. Who was your favorite character? Because they're very unique and cool looking characters. Who was your favorite to work on?
Well, Zenacope is kind of like the purveyor of cheesecake, good girl art. And I always enjoyed that because my art heroes like Adam Hughes and J. Scott Campbell, Jim Lee to a lesser extent, they were known for drawing very beautiful superheroines and that sort of thing. So I always appreciated that. I like Frank Frazetta, I like Frank Cho, I like, Gil Elfgren, all of these, classic pinup artists. So working for Zenacope was my way of, making that kind of art. And what I liked about their storytelling is they would take, like fairy tale and public domain characters. So there was, you might see a hardened version of Snow White or a twisted Alice in Wonderland. And I think for me, the Alice characters were always right on the top of my list, like doing cool, modern, sexy Alice in Wonderland takes was fun. Other people have done it before. J. Scott Campbell did a fantastic run of those, but it's fun. I enjoyed doing those.
Of course. So obviously in regards to collecting and collections, you can see that I collect Marvel Legends. I can see behind you a couple of figures. Is there anything that you would class yourself as a collector of?
I now that I do Marvel Legends things, it's so much fun to go find them in Target or something and to have them, like to be able to hold that product. It's a real thing that I can hold in my hands. I love that. And in the same way, I love being able to hold a comic book. So I collect both of those things. Games, I guess, is the other thing. Like I really enjoy playing video games, and I tend to want to get the the actual version in my hands versus a digital download or something. I don't know why, it just feels better.
Yeah, I think that certain people, certain ones of us that are of a certain age, we need to have the physical product in our hand. I'm the same. If I'm getting a game, I'll ask for it for a birthday or something because I want the physical one. Don't just get me a digital download. Yeah, get me the box. Get me the I want to look for the pages of the book. No, brilliant. So obviously you mentioned a couple of the other artists there as well. Is there? I know that you mentioned Jim Lee early on. Is there anybody that really stands out that as an inspiration or somebody that really inspires you to kind of do what you do or continue doing what you're doing?
Well, I kind of alluded to it before, but I really think J. Scott Campbell, like if Jim Lee was the entry drug, like my habit ever since I discovered his work was J. Scott Campbell. I really feel like he's the greatest comic artist I have seen. I just feel like he's constantly innovative, stylish, unique, in a way, and fun, like in a way that nobody else is. So even if I can't myself measure up to all of those things, it's aspirational to me. I don't think I'll ever be as cartoony or as traditional line art as he is. I've become sort of a digital painter since, going through video games. So we do different things, but nonetheless, I find his work the most inspirational of all the artists out there. And I still have a lot of fondness for, Alex Ross and like the incredible high level of realism he does. And also Adam Hughes has never been far from my heart. Anything he does, I will buy it without, my comic store knows if there's an Adam Hughes product, they just can go ahead and hold that for me because I will buy it.
I spent a couple of years out in America. I was out in New York for 3 years, and that was where I really kind of discovered the comic book shop, because we didn't have those stores over here at the time. I'd pick them up at kind of boot fairs and flea markets and stuff, just occasional issues here and there. And my friend Ben at the time said to me, "Have you read Kingdom Come?" And I was like, "No, I haven't." And
Wow.
I'll never forget this. Never forget this. It felt like he literally just kind of went like this across the road. He pulled up at a comic book store, left the engine running, went in, bought me the graphic novel, came out, gave it to me, said, "Read this, it will change your life." And an incredible, a book to read. Just the artwork and, as you say, the level of realism there is just absolutely insane. I was very fortunate enough to meet JRJR at MCM London quite a few years back, but he's always been a favourite of mine. And when I found out he was there, and I took a few issues down to get signed, and it was that kind of hero element of kind of like, "Hello, will you sign my book, please?" Like, he was
one of those creators that came to Hawaii in the 90s, doing the tours, and was really friendly, super nice, talking to me. I never forgot it. He recently came on social media, like he has an Instagram account now. He's got a Twitter account now, and he'll post things like, "Who's your favorite Spider-Man artist?" And I get to go, "It's you, John Romita Jr. I love you."
Yeah, brilliant. What would you? A bit of a curveball, bit of a bonus question here, but there is, from the communities, the online kind of collecting communities, I do see a lot of people that kind of, they do the artwork, they do, especially with the digital painting, and you can get so many. Especially nowadays, you can get so many good tools, with iPads and styluses and stuff, for people to be able to kind of do this stuff. What advice would you have to anybody kind of starting out or wanting to kind of go down that route of, they want to do comic book art, they want to kind of get to the place that the likes of yourselves and other artists are? What would be your advice, your wisdom to pass on?
It's, everyone is always asking us some version of that question, and the problem is there's no magic pill that's going to make you a great artist quickly. There's no shortcut for it. It's just purely work put in. It's like getting a black belt, is the way I describe it, or becoming a magician. Like it's learning a craft that just takes years to perfect. And so it's kind of doesn't matter if I am going to say you should do this or that. What's going to happen is the people who are willing to spend the hours, the 10,000 hours or whatever it is, to get good at it, they were already going to do it. Like that. There's people who self-select, and in their life they just know in their heart that this is what they have to do, and because of that, they will spend those years, becoming that. If you don't have it kind of from birth, if you're not wired for it, like to sit there for that long and do that thing, there's nothing I can say that will convince you to do that. So it's just kind of, self-motivation, really.
Following a passion and sticking with it.
Exactly.
Honestly, I love to draw. I love to do a bit of digital drawing, nowhere near the level of yourself, but it's a great pastime, and I can only kind of, admire the amount of hours and time that people like yourself have put into to get where you are and give us the amazing stuff that you give us. Anything that's going on at the moment? I know that you've just been over to a Comic-Con elsewhere, haven't you? You flew over, was it? Where did you go?
It was my most far afield comic show ever in Abu Dhabi. Yeah, I'd never been to the Middle East before, so for me, that's a full over 24 hours of flying just to get there, and it was a remarkably fun trip. My wife and I went out there and saw Dubai, and then drove over for the comic show. It was just really different. I live in Hawaii, which is its own thing, and the Middle East, and especially like those amazing cities that they have out there, are something else. They're just unique. It's well worth the trip, I would say, to anyone who hasn't gone yet. And then, comic season is about to start up. So, we have MegaCon and C2E2 and New York Comic Con in the plans this year, and looking forward to going to those as well.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, if you ever come over to the UK, come over to any of ours, let me know.
I've been dying to get to the UK for years and years. In fact, my my art dealer is based right there in the UK.
Okay.
And it feels inevitable. It feels like one of these years that is going to happen. It's right on her home turf. We're talking about this show and that show, and the pandemic's kind of receding now. So it just feels like it's, next couple of years maybe is possible.
We've got a couple of big ones over here that we do, and they're not on the same level of kind of like San Diego Comic-Con or New York or anything like that, but they are quite big. And one always takes place in October in London around my birthday time, and I always go down to it. Always go down to it. And my eldest two children are now old enough to appreciate it, so they come along as well now, which is great. So if you ever do come over, then I'll be sure to come down and say hello.
Oh, I hope so. That'd be great. I like to visit the UK and London anyway, so it kind of. It would, if I could just, justify the trip, like if the show is going to fly me out, that'd be hard for me to say no to, because then, you're going to send me one of my favorite places in the world and I get to do a comic show. Okay. Brilliant.
So is there anything major that you're working on at the moment that you can talk about, or is it all very secret and under wraps? Is there anything that we should look out for?
Well, I can vaguely allude to a project that we just finished with Hasbro. A new line. I'm not going to say how many or exactly what's in it, but a multiple, figure thing with incredible characters, just the best characters. I'm so excited for it. Once it comes out, there's a good chance it becomes my favorite new product of my own.
Wow.
It doesn't feel real until you have it in your hands, but it's got that potential. So I really can't wait for that. And we just announced like a great new line of X-Men figures, and then the Force set of 4. Forget what the Build-A-Figure is, but the one with the blue marble and stuff. Yeah. And then presumably this would be the next thing, or the next 2 things that they might announce. We'll see. I cannot wait to share this one with you guys, though.
Excellent. I can't wait to see it. And that's the great thing about Hasbro, is we always know that there's something else coming. We always know there's something on the horizon. So it's great to know that you're involved further down the line. And anybody is watching or listening that wants to follow you or check your stuff out, where's the best place to find you, to locate your stuff, David?
Fortunately, I'm very easy to find on social media at my own name, at David Nakayama, on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, ArtStation, always my own name, fortunately.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Well, I will leave you there then, David. Thank you ever so much for joining us on Behind the Toys. Hopefully you've enjoyed it as much as I have. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. And I hope that our paths do cross an MCM London Comic Con at some point, hopefully down the line.
It's inevitable one of these days.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, David. Take care.
All right. Thanks for having me.